So thanks everyone for coming to our fourth workshop for the Metaverse Blockathon, which is a 4-week online hackathon that's involved with Blockathon DAO, which is a learn to earn entrepreneurial education initiative to enable people entering Web3 with opportunities to work and collaborate with projects across the world via two mechanisms: by joining our blockathons that we host via cohorts like this one, the Metaverse Blockathon, and also for them to participate in bounties that we provide over our bounty platform. So today we have a workshop with Xylodrone doing a talk on Metaverse UX. Xylodrone is quite the creative. She's been producing work for a long time across many media platforms like photography, music, and now she's really into UX design and has been a part of the cryptoverse for a little while. She's known for her work in Coda as well as some other projects in virtual reality ecosystems, and so she is here today with this talk on the Metaverse UX and how it can impact in real life. So thank you, Xylodrone, and I'll let you take it away.
Thank you for the intro. Today I would like to address the elephant in the room and conversate about certain issues within metaverses, which we need to address more philosophically and less with code and design, which will eventually get to a certain point, depending on how technologies evolve. So to open this conversation, I would just like to point out what user experience is. And in order to make a successful user experience, we must understand the needs of our users, what their values are, where they come from, and what they expect this product that we're building to deliver. So what is it that these users seek, and what can a metaverse enable them to do? So the first very important thing within metaverses is that it gives us boundless creativity. With this, we can provide anyone to make whatever they want in a digital space in a much easier manner. And obviously you have that magic spell within digital environments, which is Command-C, which is very helpful usually, which means that even through trial and error, we can find the right things within the metaverses that we need to deploy. The next thing is interactivity, so playing games, attending events, and this leads to connectivity, which enables us to meet like-minded people from different types of environments which we couldn't have encountered. The next thing is building new economies, which are completely different from the, to a certain degree, unjust systems we live in, where somebody needs to suffer in order for others to prosper. So we can build completely new types of economic systems which unlock economic freedom for any person that has access to a browser. And then we have personal expression and identity, where we can be whoever we wish to be, regardless of the limits of our body, our circumstances, our environments, and ultimately even our governments. In this case, I believe that this will be a very big thing in the future, and we can address who we are and what we are through this digital transformation. And of course, last but definitely not least, is building different types of societies through which we can make systems and world political, economic, and social systems which are more just than the ones we are experiencing at the moment. So how do we do that? In order to enable boundless creativity, we have to give people the tools to do that. So for an example, if somebody wishes to paint or to design a car or something like that, it should be very straightforward and not per se as complex as using, let's say, Photoshop or any of these like quote professional tools, because ultimately what we will see getting built, and Canva is maybe a good example of that, we're going to see tools being built that enable us to get our ideas from our minds into either a virtual or like a real world very easily. So I believe that the thing that is most important to build are like tools which enable us to do this, but also things like no-code gaming engines. If we get to that point that we enable people to build, let's say, games or any type of experiences very easily, and if anybody can do that, this will make our interactivity and engagement with the metaverse more easy. And also because of this, people will feel more inclined to stay within them. And at the same time, then every metaverse becomes its own organic thing, which could potentially even self-govern itself through, let's say, smart contracts and similar technologies. There is a bit of a ethical worry from my perspective here. I don't think that we should trap people within metaverses all the time, because it will deteriorate our mental health. However, we can sort of impact that by limiting people's times within the metaverse, and potentially having some kind of, let's say, for example, games that NFT games that reward us for working on ourselves outside of the digital space. And of course, building new economies could be done, for example, by each user. So when somebody creates, let's say we have like a 3D metaverse architect, and this person builds their own world. At the same time, they can mint every single one of their creations as a unlimited NFT. And then each of these could go in its own marketplace, and they don't have to be overpriced like the NFTs that we're seeing, but in order for everyone to kind of use them, they could be very cheap, but then the creator also gets something in return. So personal expression and the emergence of new societies. Like I said, we are constrained by our environments, our bodies, our minds, our physical surroundings, societies, cultures, and governments. Within metaverses, we have none of these boundaries. And if we enter a certain space where we can just be ourselves, this could also ultimately impact our understanding of ourselves, and we could get to know more about who we are and what led us to becoming this type of person, and why we identify ourselves in a certain way. So when we get to a space when we can be completely what we are and who we are, this also attracts similar people that can engage with us in certain projects, conversations, and building new and interesting things together. So now let's talk about the barriers to entry. So obviously hardware capabilities, and in order to overcome this, we will need to wait for certain technologies to improve and make very easy tools. Like, for example, a lot of VR sets say are, no matter how much the price has been slashed, they're still pretty clunky, they're a pain to install, to drag around, and so on. If we talk about Web3 metaverses, specifically, this is a general barrier to entry when it comes to crypto, but it's all these wallet connections, gas fees, the language, and you need to sometimes use plenty of different platforms to like exist within like one space. In order to overcome this, every single process of onboarding has to feel seamless. You don't have to go to Wikipedia and read how to install a wallet. You don't need to dig for hours to find that information, for example, on how to install a wallet and so on. So this needs to be seamless, otherwise Web3 will generally have a problem with mass adoption. And then within metaverses, we need to, help people engage, especially if they're newcomers, have again a seamless onboarding procedure where each newcomer can learn about how to exist within a metaverse. So let's say we gamify that procedure. People can get some tokens if they complete the task of learning how they can build games, how they can interact with others, and how they can create their economies and so on. Additionally, there's the flip side of that, which is outside of the bounds of technology, which is how we approach people that are coming into metaverses. Other notable issues would be asset transfers between metaverses, but I assume this will eventually be solved with certain SDKs. And another notable issue generally right now is user engagement and keeping people within the metaverses. But as mentioned previously, this can probably be resolved with certain tools that enable us to engage with each other and just be creative. So one of the very important things we should also probably focus on is making metaverses available to all and decentralized, because if one single entity owns a, let's say, very successful, very engaging metaverse, they might be focused on just extracting value from their users rather than the well-being of the users and how metaverses can actually help us just live better lives. So how do we do that? If we created decentralized and self-sustainable, self-governed metaverses, this could potentially be possible. However, the biggest problem will probably be governance itself. But the good thing about digital worlds and building within them is that we can deploy a certain type of governance system, and if it doesn't work, we can try and build a new one. And the only way we can succeed at this is literally trial and error. Because the current governance systems are digitally or physically are not good enough, and are quite flawed. So I would like to touch upon something else when it comes to this governance. Kind of ironic. This is kind of ironic because of the person that made the quote, but it's a very interesting. Topic to discuss. What is okay to do in the metaverse? What is not okay, and how do we even approach situations where people have done something that is, quote, morally wrong, and who is the person to decide what is morally wrong and not wrong? So, as mentioned, all of the barriers to entry, all of the tooling for creativity, all of the environments, we can eventually get there if we put our minds to it. That's just a matter of time, and we will get there. But the real elephant in the room is how we build new systems which create more just societies. So in order to do that, let's go back and see the need and evaluate the needs of our users. So if we enable people to be creative, their mood will elevate, their anxiety will disappear, your brain function increases. So for example, when people make music, they create, when people start to learn how to play a new instrument, you build new neural pathways. So for example, it prevents Alzheimer's and so on. And then going through interactivity and connectivity, so playing games, for example, improves our memory and cognitive abilities. It has been proven that when children have played video games that were in pain, that they completely forgot about their pain. Some people that are maybe socially awkward IRL can start build their social skills, and this has been proven with VR technology, especially. We get to establish deeper connections with people that are not necessarily close to us, but that's quite obvious. And we get to make faster decisions to improve our lives. So if we build new economies, we give users safety and financial freedom. If we build new economic systems, I didn't finish this one. If we help build new non-abusive economic systems which enable everyone to have all of the needs of an individual, then everybody is generally more happy, and that decreases crime rates. As mentioned in this one. And we get to avoid environments which we need to access for work just because we need money. Personal identity, expressing ourselves beyond the physical and accepting who we are. Outer-worldly experiences which can make us learn more about our subconscious, who we are, what we are, and so on. As mentioned before, building different types of societies through trial and error. So the most important thing is, if we take all of the above into account, any metaverse could cover any individual's personal needs. So food, healthcare, physical and mental, as well as shelter, economic freedom, creativity and connectivity provide this. And also the need for education, which is also given to a metaverse users through connectivity. So if we manage to actually succeed in doing this, we could implement these types of systems in the real world and potentially improve everybody's existence. So this is what metaverse viewers should aim to achieve, but as they say, the road to hell is paved with good intentions. What could happen? Complete surveillance and control, abusive, violent, and sexual behavior, identity theft, fraud and scams, full immersion, escapism, which makes us forget the real world. So this is kind of like the dystopian image of any metaverse. But these can very much be avoided. It's just all a matter of trial and error testing. So in order to avoid surveillance and control, we need to emphasize the importance of decentralization. We need to have certain bodies, councils, smart contracts that help identify abusive behavior and put an end to it. Identity theft can be prevented through non-transferable soul-bound NFTs. That's a typo of mine. And soul-bound NFTs, which are so within Web3, if these are connected to your, let's say, the wallet, these can't be moved around. You can't sell them, and they go with you no matter where you go. Fraud and scams can be dealt with cybersecurity and groups that help people retrieve their lost funds and assets. And obviously full immersion can be avoided by giving people certain time limits, so time periods that they can only spend within the world. And that can be even extended by, having things to do IRL, which are potentially even connected to a metaverse. So it's up to us to decide what kind of world we want to build, because the existing systems are flawed, and it would be a bit of a shame if we had a replication of this in the digital world. That's it. Thank you very much.
Cool.
Any questions?
I have a few, but I will let anyone the opportunity to ask any questions. Please.
I have many questions.
Yeah.
Thanks a lot for. I think it's very philosophical the way that you brought it up. So I would also embark on philosophical feedback. I think it's very interesting that. Sorry, Paul.
No, I didn't say anything. Please continue.
Yeah, all good. It's very interesting that oftentimes when people talk about UX, the assumption is that it's about the UI, and you really kind of went back to the step of why we do certain things and understanding like who are we building for and what are the problems that we're trying to solve with Metaverse. And I think that it's very interesting how already before the fully immersive experiences that Metaverse will unlock, we are meeting here today to participate in a workshop about Metaverse UX, which is already like people from all over the world are logging into a session that is then allowing them to join together, learn about something, and potentially later produce something, etc. And I think that in terms of who are we building for and why are we doing Metaverse in the first place, is many times experiences that are otherwise only accessible to few elite people or like affluent parts of the society. Now with Metaverse we can create those experiences and make them accessible to people from all over the world, potentially from low socioeconomic demographic. And then one of the examples that Mark Zuckerberg gives that I really like is, imagine if someone from India or Africa can experience the same awesome experience of being, yeah. And yeah, so I reckon it's interesting when you bring up the how to avoid certain things and how to encourage certain things with your talk. And I wonder from design point of view, like less only the philosophy, from design point of view, what do you see as things that encourage certain trends or discourage certain trends in Metaverse UX?
So I think that building easy to use creative tools are key. And because if we manage to get to a point where anybody can create anything very easily and get their ideas out, that will be kind of the ultimate like IRL tech connection, because this whole thing of getting ideas out very easily really unlocks boundless creativity, and I think that's the main thing to think about developing within any metaverse. Easy world builders, no code gaming engines, and anything that fits within these kind of bounds. Because like I said, if we get to that point, then anybody will be able to build a limitless metaverse, and then it spreads by itself, and you have your own economies within it, outside of just having like one, and then that's it, and then functions like that. Which is why I think, for an example, that land sales are actually a very bad thing, because then you limit the size to a certain degree of your metaverse, and you put a barrier in place for everyone joining in, and usually not everywhere. It's not the case everywhere, but usually you have one economy that dictates everything else in a certain way.
Like you're saying artificial scarcity is not something that we should encourage.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then when you're saying something like allow fast build and prototyping, that reminds me a bit of, I know that Codadot had this vision of taking the NFT marketplace, or generally everything NFTs, and make a scaffolding, a fast prototyping. We discussed it separately, I remember one time. So allowing people to kind of like drag and drop and create experiences using NFT, or creating spaces, hopefully later on Metaverse.
Yeah.
Is that what you're thinking of?
Yeah. Well, that's just one example. But the whole principle of scaffolding is kind of what I'm referring to. Anything that's very user intuitive and it doesn't take you much to engage with it or understand it is very key, because so far we built these tools, like let's say for an example Photoshop, where you have this expert mentality where you need to, I don't know, it's like, to me, like for somebody that has been using it for like a decade now, it's like to a certain degree, it feels like it's going backwards with the UX because they're not really simplifying it. And it's like you're cool if you know how to use Photoshop because it's like so hard to use. But then because of that, creatives get hired just based on the fact that they know how to use Photoshop, and then people from example marketing tell them what to do. So my whole point is like we should enable people with great ideas to make them possible, regardless of the tools they know how to use. And we can do that by making very easy user-intuitive tools.
Yeah, we have another project partner in the Metaverse Blockathon that is developing Metaverse as a service on the Near platform, a reality chain. I haven't played with their product yet, but it looks pretty dope in terms of you can really build whatever it is that you want on it. So I was thinking like with Paul, which kind of like jammed on, what if we could build like a Blockathon DAO campus on in the Metaverse?
That'd be so cool.
Definitely.
Like then we could all like be now, instead of Zoom, like we could be in an auditorium or some kind of like a co-work space with a whiteboard or stuff like that. That could be really good.
It also depends if these kind of experiences are even necessary in the Metaverse. Like, in my opinion, they're not even necessary. I think Zoom is enough for this kind of stuff, and it might be even easier, for an example. Because then, okay, we are at an auditorium and stuff. So, how'd you get people to sit and not move around? How'd you get people to not go into your face and like hack something and just break everything? How'd you get people from like not moving around and distracting you and stuff? So if this wasn't a metaverse, it probably should have been like maybe even more gamified, and then we would be going through different worlds and showing people different tools, how to use them, and literally providing the use cases about what I've just talked, but within a 3D environment, rather than sitting in front of a board, because we already like have different tools that enable us to do that.
Yeah. This leads, I don't know if you have any more questions, Daniel, but I have kind of one. As per your comments to the entire Metaverse UX journey for the average user, it encapsulates all the way from the beginning of people first interfacing with hardware, what the hardware looks like, who provides the hardware, of course, the entire Web3 journey. Now, Metaverse doesn't explicitly mean the incorporation of blockchain technology and Web3. I think because we're so used to it, we generally think it's implied, but technically Minecraft's could be considered Metaverse, you know what I mean? Which is probably a key distinction. And the Web3 component to it is going to be absolutely pivotal to provide the opportunity for people to like take ownership of the experience, and as they do work in the metaverse and then actually start curating environments and energies and realms, etc., hopefully people can take ownership of that creative expression, right? I just want to make that, and obviously you know that, but I just want to make that explicit. But the maybe to kind of expand on maybe some of the issues that we really have is that, we've already got Meta spending billions of dollars, thousands of engineers. They've already been focusing 5-10 years on hardware. And, think about, we got all these L1 chains that are providing smart contract Turing complete languages to enable us to build metaverses and all the tooling, the NFTs and tokens and stuff to allow us to interface with these metaverse experiences. I hate to be pessimistic because I'm usually an extraordinarily optimistic person. I feel like the meat space producers of hardware technology are gonna have quite a hold on the UX trajectory of the average user, because if you think about us, we're crypto natives, and we like to be at the cusp of innovation and creative expression, and we kind of can sideswipe the need, like we can onboard extra complexity in the UX in order to onboard, but for the average person who, imagine the average Apple user, when Apple comes out and releases the AR, which will be in a few years, and then VR later, it's quite possible that Apple and Meta and these other companies are going to build the App Store equivalent of the Metaverse. So rather than apps, it might be custom, basic, built-out realms. So then people from Africa, like you were saying, can then jump on and then do no-code build-outs using what Meta and Apple have built. You know what I mean? And my concern is that they're going to have control of it, just like the App Store does curation of the apps that get built on the store, right? And what I hope to see is that someone like Apple, for example, provides might do some gateway with regards to them providing hardware, but then also provides the flexibility of intersection from their platform to open source protocols, and open source communities building out metaverse experiences. That's my hope. So I'm just we just understand what for-profit space companies do. So my question is, how optimistic or pessimistic are you in what do you think is the general scope or trajectory of these large big tech corporations who probably will have a control of hardware manufacturing and distribution to the average user in 5-10 years time? How much of a hold do you think they'll have in the metaverse in general?
I guess it depends what their financial goals are and how they aim to achieve them.
Yeah.
Because what Apple has done in the beginning is created the App Store, right? Which basically gave them a monopoly on certain things.
Yeah.
To be honest, I'm not that optimistic either. I think they will probably all try to make their own metaverses, which are I don't think their hardware will be limited to their metaverses per se.
Yes.
Because it's in their interest financially to, enable anyone to use their. I think for Apple, for example, to compete with Meta, in terms of hardware, they're not going to want to make their hardware available to everyone as well, but it's probably going to be a bit more fancy and a bit more expensive set than Oculus.
Yes. Yeah. They do have the cult following as well, so it would just be another Apple product to have, right? So they have that up their sleeve, but they probably will just do what they did last time, which is take a massive cut of the fee of App Store transactions, etc. So
well, but we kind of also are not sure on that front, because I think Apple is integrating NFTs or something within some of their programs, or Behance or something like that. So I think they will be open to embracing certain Web3 capabilities. And when it came to privacy and stuff, Apple was quite into that beforehand. There was some debates about where they actually stand right now.
Yeah.
Due to the children ban and all that kind of stuff, the children control bans.
Yeah.
But I think we're gonna have to see. What I think is definitely gonna happen. All these tech giants are probably gonna have their own metaverses.
They're gonna try. Yeah.
But in regards to Apple, it depends if that's actually their intention, because they're doing quite well on other fronts.
Yeah, I'm cautious. I actually agree with you. I'm cautiously optimistic that Apple can actually do something a little bit different here.
Yeah, me too.
I don't know quite what it is, but I just think that because they're really a hardware company. That's really what they are. Meta's not. Meta's a software company, right?
Yeah.
And because Apple's a hardware company, that's how they get most of their revenue and their profits. They've got much more leeway in then maybe to experiment or maybe to innovate a little bit more in these new spaces. So let's fingers crossed.
I mean, if Apple does really come out, and they will at some point with their VR AR headset, it's probably gonna be way more user friendly than anything Meta makes.
Oh yeah, for
Because
sure.
they've just like been killing that for like decades.
Yeah, I think the AR offering, whenever it will be probably pretty extraordinary. I think, to be honest with you, I think that it's gonna be the first mainstream product that's gonna sell out to the millions like quickly. That's gonna provide the first entry into the metaverse. But once again, it's gonna be AR. This is just my opinion, and that's gonna be a really extraordinary time to experience, because we're gonna see how en masse, culture starts interweaving into actual metaverse, and then we're gonna be able to see how it plays out, and see what people do, and see how people curate environments, see how people exploit environments in the metaverse. So I'm really excited for that. But it's probably like 3 to 5 years away, probably still, seems like.
And probably even more.
Yeah.
Because in order to actually have AR and stuff, you need 5G and everything else, and like super fast connections, and you need content within each city, space, village, whatever. So I think it's more like 10 years.
Well, I guess it's actually dependent on, one, battery space in the glasses, two, super high bandwidth between the glasses and the phone. The phone's executing computation just for the metaverse experience outside of its general computation, right? And then the phone needs to have adequate battery life for its other functioning. So yeah, you might be right.
I don't think we're gonna have phones. I don't think we're gonna have phones anymore. We're gonna have wearables.
Oh
Like,
well,
probably in a watch or something.
look, probably. Like God knows.
Because I think that's kind of the point, right? Like you don't have to type on a screen anymore. You're kind of immersed, and then you have like you're watching stuff and say, "I want a cab." You're gonna like say it into your wrist.
Yeah.
I think that's how it's gonna look like, but that's probably like 10, 15 years away.
Yeah.
Like even beyond like the battery life and the actual hardware behind the glasses, you need the content. You need to.
Correct.
I believe you might have to like 3D scans, basically. Well, not necessarily 3D scan, but pin your content, and then who is allowed to have certain content somewhere within, like, let's say London. Like you can't just have anybody putting stuff everywhere.
Yeah.
So yeah, there's all of that.
Yeah, the photorealistic 3D rendering in real time without like significant lag is gonna be bloody hard. You know what I mean? But yeah, cool. What else did I have here? Yeah, that's kind of covers.
By the way, for your comment about what would be centralized and what would be not centralized or captured, it's very interesting to look at the evolution of how the internet happened until now and see that even though you have, whether it's Apple or Facebook that are supposedly centralized, they all need to interface with the same internet. So they're trying to maybe like build product ecosystem that is kind of like walled, but then the protocols themselves or some of the infrastructure like DNS, for example, is supposedly decentralized. Question is like how sufficiently decentralized or how egalitarian is the accessibility to participate in those protocols governance and in the infrastructure governance. And I think that at least this is a part of what the promise for crypto and Web3 is, that hopefully we'll be able to build more systems that are allowing kind of open participation. But it's not trivial that it would happen. So yeah, that would be interesting.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Yeah. I guess as we all know, there's a tremendous amount of experimentation happening all across Web3, and we're still at the early stage of experimentation, even though we feel like that's maybe not the case, that we still are. So let's just hope in 5 years' time we've gone a long way with experimentation, actually found things that are robust with regards to their decentralization and the immutability and the censorship resistance, so that we can actually start implementing those systems that actually have actual true history of, you know, really being able to support anyone joining, and then we can use them in these metaverses, you know, because the reality is that a lot of the stuff that happens now, it's like there is a question of, like you're saying, Daniel, is like, is it truly decentralized, or is it just kind of like, you know, it's somewhat decentralized and it's just a new experiment, you know? So I'm very keen for those robust systems, governance systems, to pop out in 5 years that we can use them in these metaverses. So yeah, we've got to do it right. If we don't do it right, well, you know, like
It's definitely going to be a ride.
yeah, well, I don't know, more right. That's, but how do you even define that? That's the freaking issue. Like.